Good morning, one and all. I welcome all the participants for the second session of second day FTP on computational mathematics and artificial intelligence for engineers. Now, I would like to introduce this session speaker, Dr. N.S. Srikanth. Dr. N.S. Srikanth is Associate Professor in the Department of IIT, Kannur University, Kerala. Dr. N.S. Srikanth is graduate in physics from University of Calicut and postgraduate in computer science applications from Vishweshwarya Technological University, Belagaum, Karnataka. Dr. N.S. Srikanth received his PhD in information technology from University of Kannur, Kerala, in the area of multimodal human-computer interaction. He started his career as lecturer in computer science and engineering in KVG College of Engineering, Sulya, Karnataka. He worked as technical assistant in the Department of Information Technology in Kannur University, Kerala. He worked as lecturer in the Department of Information Technology, University of Mumbai. He worked as project manager at CDAC Mumbai, Scientist C at CDAC Bangalore, Scientist D at CDAC Bangalore. Also, he worked as a joint director, Scientist E. Dr. N.S. Srikanth is currently working as Associate Professor in the Department of Information Technology, Kannur University, Kerala. He has executed 8 research and development projects worth of rupees 18 million funded by various government agencies in the area of e-learning, assistive and accessible computing, HCI. He has authored more than 15 publications, including journals and conference papers. Also, he has authored a book for University Press, University of Mumbai, on digital computer fundamentals. He has guided more than 30 PG and UG level internship students for their final year project. Sir, I welcome you for this session.
Thank you, madam. Can I share the screen with you?
Yes, sir. You can start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you are able to see the screen now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. One second. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Of course, I think it's a bit challenging to talk process of mathematics because basically I'm from a computer science background, and to giving a lecture, especially for an FDP program in the area of artificial intelligence to a mathematical process, it is even more challenging because one of the major reason is this particular topic what I'm going to discuss today, it is your subject. It's not actually computer science subject. That's what basically I wanted to start. So when Professor Radha madam discussed with me about the topic, what is the topic which I'm going to cover in this FDP program, I was little confused, like, because anyway, I may not be in a position to talk mathematics to you people because you are the veteran in that. But considering the current trend and the current technology, so basically the influence in the common man's life. So that is anyway, each one of us are really aware of it, what is actually happening around the world. And the situations like COVID, pandemic, totally revolutionized the way we work, right? The entire platform was shifted to e-platforms. Now, in the maybe I can say before COVID or before pandemic, we never have a concept of organizing the seminar in this way, right? Of course, it was a practice, especially in the IT industry, but not in non-IT industry or non-IT streams, because online meetings were very common in IT industry. It is not at all a new concept or a new method. But non-IT industry was not very popular, or non-IT industry were not using these kind of methods. But now you can see that the complete school education has shifted from the physical school to virtual schools, and we have been running this particular system for past 2 years. Now, definitely there may be a question on efficiency and things like that. That is a different part. But keep, because efficiency also will improve. It doesn't mean that efficiency will not improve, because you all are used to a particular system in one overnight. Exactly, I can say that it is one overnight, because we all started thinking about such kind of alternatives in March 23rd, 2020. That was the period, we all realized that we cannot move out of home and we have to completely switch over to a digital world, when Prime Minister announced the national lockdown. So basically, the kind of message which I wanted to tell you is, the kind of big paradigm shift happened from a physical world to digital world actually, emphasize on having this digital media and digital platform utilized in an effective way, and that is the way the business can also improve. Now, artificial intelligence, machine learning, these kind of topics were there for years. It is not a new topic at all, but now these have a lot of relevance, because now you see, I am taking this session over Zoom, right? I am taking this particular class through Zoom. Now you are recording this particular session. A huge amount of data will be recorded in these kind of online platforms across the globe, right? Because when you are actually recording this thing, this recorded video will be there in their Zoom website, Zoom account, and definitely you will get a copy of it, provided if you have already taken the, so whatever the kind of license you have taken. Now, like this way, when somebody is using a digital platform, huge amount of data will be accumulated. Now, this huge amount of data will be analyzed for various purposes. That is where the actual power of artificial intelligence and machine learning is coming to picture. Now, let me get into the topic. My proposal or my hypothesis here is, artificial intelligence is nothing but mathematics, right? It is nothing but mathematics. So even if you call it is artificial intelligence as a computer science subject, but it is only a mathematics. That's what the hypothesis which I wanted to state before I start. Now, the rest of the talks will be basically a proof for my hypothesis, right? This hypothesis which I am just starting in the beginning. Let's see that now. What is artificial intelligence? Now, if you look at the word AI, our objective is to devise a human-like system for machines. Now, why do you need a human-like system? Because sometimes we invented machine just because human is inefficient in many cases. That is why we invented machines. Then why do you need a human-like system again? What is the motive behind devising a human-like system for many cases? The reason is, any kind of work you do in the universe, there are two kinds of jobs. One is a routine stereotype jobs, and a job which can be solved using intelligence or with help of human capabilities. These are the two kinds of jobs which are available in the world. Now, if a particular job is a mundane job or just a stereotype job, means a particular task in a repeated way. That's it. There is no intelligence involved in that. So even if you put anyone in that place, if that will be able to do the job. That is what our called the routine kind. So routine kind of thing. So some of the routine or highly sequential based jobs, we can actually make use of machines. That is the reason the mechanical and the production industry were started using computer or automated methods for improving their production capability, right? And this we have seen it many places, because a big production lines in many of the companies will have in some place, some other robot may be screwing something, right? He will be using a screwdriver and screwing a part of the things, right? And if you simply look at your some manufacturing industry production line in YouTube, you will come to know a series of robots which are arranged in a linear way will be doing one job and another job, and once something is done, it will push to the next robot that will do some job and it will push to the next robot. So when a particular thing moving through a production line, end of the production line, your final product will be ready. That is what it is happening in car industry, right? Automobile industry, and many engineering and production, and especially in food industry and all, right? Food industry, there will be some raw material will be coming, it will be frying or it will be processing something. Then after processing, it will pack, then it will seal, then it will put it in a carton, and carton will be ready to deploy, to send it across the shops. Now, this is the way the production lines are set. So those lines are already utilizing the power of automation and things like that. Now, why are we saying that I want a human-like systems? That is where I'm going to tell you some of the interesting findings. For example, there are few things where human presence is must. You cannot avoid human being for doing some of the job. Just for example, let us take a healthcare industry. Of course, doctors, hospital, pharmaceutical company are part of it. Now, a particular patient is going to see a doctor, then doctor will be asking his problem. So he will be asking some series of questions, or the patient will be saying some of the problems, and the doctor will be, asking few questions back, and finally he will be concluding that he has some problems. And believe me, this is only possible at present. It is possible only with human only. We cannot replace completely this job with help of a computer, because if you visit an MD doctor, definitely he will not do any intervention methods to conclude whether a patient is having a disease or not. He will be asking series of questions, and he'll do some root blood test, some ultrasound scan or X-ray or similar kind of things to conclude the disease. Now, you take a context, whatever the questions he asks, we can actually a machine can also ask, right? You go to a computer, machine can ask series of questions. Then whatever the test he is telling, we can actually get that test done in some lab, and we can give that results back to that. And whatever the inference concluding by the doctor based on the results, then the same logic we can implement in the system. But still, and we have such a beautiful lot of processing capability computer, then why still we need doctors? It's $1 million question. The reason is that we need doctors because these kind of process are not actually completely process driven. Like, it cannot have, like, what will happen? You simply go to Google and type, I have running nose, or I have fever. Then suddenly, at the present trend in Google, the first thing it will ask is, do you have it may be corona, right? It's quite obvious now, right? And you have some pain in some area, then once you type it, the first thing it will get it, there is a chance that it may be cancer. But that is not the way a doctor does, right? And it will unwantedly create a panic situation to the doctor. So there are few things, or for some of the example, you have symptoms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But Google might be telling, Google or any expert system in that matter, if you use a machine-based techniques, it may tell that you may have cancer, you may have something else, or 2, 3 diseases which are on the higher side. But that may not be the reality. So this is where probably the doctor's intelligence is really required to solve some of the things. Now, what we are going to do it in AI, there are some of the problem domain which you cannot actually completely solve with help of machine. For that, you need human. Now, what is the kind of intelligence human use to solve the problem? That intelligence I wanted to bring as part of the machine. That is what artificial intelligence is all about. Okay, keeping the tiredness and laziness apart, right? Because it is a typical capability of human that he feel tired and he feel lazy. But these two qualities may not be there in the machine or AI systems what we are envisaging. So basically, what I'm looking for right now is, we are looking for a machine which thinks like human. We want a human-like machine. It can take decisions, right? It can take decisions, and it can actually handle emotions, right? Because emotion handling is one of the core capabilities of human, right? It cannot be done with the machine now. For example, nowadays you see, we all stand in a service queue for buying a railway ticket or something. Suddenly, a very old lady came there, right? But if a queue is managed by robot, then immediately, if an old lady directly come to buy the ticket, the robot may not allow, because robot is very clearly instructed that people should maintain the queue. No, we should not allow anybody to intrude in the queue. But being a human, we may allow that old lady to come first and take the ticket. The reason is, that is where our emotion works well. So how do we fix the emotional feelings as part of the machine? So these are the few challenges AI researchers are facing nowadays. Now, let me take your attention to this simple slide. You take a couple of minutes. I don't disturb you in between. Hope you are able to see the slide that the words totally gambled, right? Can someone respond? Hello? Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Please go through that. So now, of course, you all might be trying an attempt to read this thing, and it is possible to read. That is what the interesting thing. I couldn't believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. Using the incredible power of human mind, according to the research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order in the letters in a word are. The only important thing is the first and last letter to be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess and you can still read it without a problem. This is because human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word has a whole. Amazing. Yes. I always thought spelling was important. See if your friend can also read it, right? You see it how fast people can read it. It's not only me, anybody can read it. So here actually revealing a different fact to each one of you, that now you give the same things to a computer. You open Microsoft Word, put the same thing into there. You can see so many red lines, right? Everywhere you can see, except it, in, a, the, and rest all places, you will see so many red lines here. So it means the whole spelling is wrong. But even though the spellings are wrong, doesn't matter, still you can read it. That is what the important, interesting observation about it. Now, what is the kind of message this particular message is giving? So if you are giving the same input to a computer for some purpose, it will definitely reject, because nothing matches with the syntax or semantics, syntax with respect to that, the context which is taught to the system. Means it will show everything is red line because all spellings are wrong. But that is actually speaking, it is only happening because human being is not a serial processing machine. Human being processing inside the human is not happening serial processing. It is actually a parallel processing. Now, what is the difference between serial processing and parallel processing? Because serial processing, it will go from one, means it will execute step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and so on, like that. It will never skip a step and go to the other step in a normal processing. Means you give a series of instructions, it will take the instructions by instruction. But man or human being is not like that. It's actually, that is why when I am taking this particular lecture to you, you can physically present in the place, and parallelly you can do some other things, and you can sing something else. Okay, maybe parallelly you can go to US and come back, like in mind. Even though you are hearing what I am saying, parallelly your mind, you can leave it to some other place, and it can loiter there around and come back. So it means parallelly you can do many things. Now we claim that we have parallel processing machines, but the parallel processing is not the way what we think, what we are seeing here, because this is a unique capability of human being. Even if you make a mistake, it will be able to understand the mistake and correct it. Is that the capability available with machine right now? No. If a mistake happens, it will point out. Now the mistake correction. Now, even if because basically you are not going to give the things exactly in the way you want. A partial things can also be, the semantic of that things can be extracted. It can still perform the things. That's what the difference between. So you are going to make an AI system which will work like human in the same way what you are seeing here. Like you can read it in the same way. Machine should also be able to understand the meaning of each one of the sentences or paragraph what is written here. Now, what are the buzzwords in the current scenario now? Because you have, because we all are hearing these words a lot nowadays. What are the buzzwords? One second. AI, big data, right? These are the some of the major buzzwords which we all are hearing nowadays. Now, And you know, we all know that most of the systems or business are running around these buzzwords now, right? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, because every company started using the power of AI and machine learning. Doesn't matter, it's a software institute. It can even be a, you know, a company who is selling fish and vegetables online, a company who is running your dress materials, cloth online, a company who is running services online, any kind of services online, they all uses the power of AI, machine learning, and big data. How is it? And can we really say that we are not part of it? So maybe I will take you to a typical example, and you know, this we have been, you know, of course I discussed in many forums this example to basically to tell how, you know, these things works. For example, I'm just going to a supermarket and I buy a chicken, right? So then what you will do is you will be sharing a mobile number or email with respect to the to that particular shopkeeper. That's it. Rest all in the conventional business world, sorry, in the current business world, they will do it. You can just be ideal. Now how things works. Now the moment you step out of your shop, you get your first messages in your mobile. What is that? A new, you know, a chicken masala is launched. It's a very exciting offer kind of things. So you might have already bored with your age-old masalas which you might be using in your home. Then you may try to, you know, test it a new masala. So you may go back, or next day you go and buy that particular masala. So these things will be, then you feel that it is good, then you will be keep on, you know, experimenting these new trials and new things which is coming as message. Now how this message comes? Because you have shared your mobile number with the business, that particular shopkeeper or that supermarket. Now what can be the next? Anyone? Can anyone tell what is the next next step in this forum? Unmute one of you, please tell what can be the next instance. I'm able to hear. Am I able to hear?
Sir, get feedback.
Get feedback? No, sir. That is actually a conventional thing. I'm talking about in the current world, how is it happening? Like AI, machine learning, using the power of AI and machine learning, how it should.
Marketing.
Actually, marketing.
You will get ads on this topic. You will get lots of ads on this topic.
Yes, I agree. You will get ads on this topic, like you get new ads based on this masala and things like that. Maybe an extreme case.
Based on our feedback, computer will give suggestions. I mean,
okay. So let me take an extreme case of it.
So then they will tell us to order online.
See this, madam. Can you infer something now? Can you infer something from this recently added snapshot?
Yes, they have decided that the customer has eaten chicken masala and may have gas troubles. So they can give ad of ABC tablet.
You understand, sir? Right? There will be a problem. So it means you have been using this masala and that history is already there with them. And the pharmaceutical company know that if somebody is using it, definitely you will be having some gastric problem. So one fine morning you getting up, you are holding your stomach and say that something going wrong in my head. Suddenly you are getting a message, feeling gas trouble, try this ABC tablet. Then you will feel, how my phone will, how somebody knows that I have this gas trouble. So it's actually, you know, you feel totally amazing. But I took this particular example in a very, because purposefully I took this example. Okay, so now, and you never think it. That's what I'm thinking. You will feel surprised and you will feel amazing to get such kind of message, because how somebody knows it. Now you see, after some time, after 1 month again, you get another message. The best gastroenterology hospital in India, because by the time your solution might have got worsted, right? So you need to go for an hospital to consult. So you get that. So you have been troubling with the gas trouble. So this message will not be in the direct format. It will say that if you have a gastric problem, there is a best gastroenterological hospital. A doctor who is coming from US, he will be in this hospital once in every 2 weeks. Okay, so you for appointment click here, right? So you may probably click it and you will try it. So definitely once it is a best hospital, 5,000 is the consultation charge. From 2-3 tests put together, everything 25-30,000. So then what can be the next instance, sir, madam?
Medical insurance. For the
Exactly, sir.
costs.
Yes. Your hospital expenses are getting high. So join with our complete medical insurance solution. Right now, what is the most danger part in this kind of business chain? You see that because there is no relation. You have a chicken and you are with a medical insurance now. Where are you now? Now you see the last line is important. Please cross check if all products are from same company, because there are some companies who may run everything together. They have supermarket, they have food industry, they have pharmaceutical industry, they have big hospitals, and they also run medical insurance. If they are owning all these things, their job is pretty easy. The reason is they can actually fuel one data to another, and you can actually take your business to this thing to a world where you actually want. Now, this is an extreme case which I pointed out. The reason I specifically choose this example, because in this particular case, a simple mathematical principle is working. What is that simple mathematical principle? You all are teaching the set theory and associated functionalities, right? You have a element in this particular set. You have an element in this particular set. You are bringing an association, a relationship between some of these elements in this to this, right? So there are some elements in this category which are already purchased with this thing. If two things are there, then you can actually have a separate association rule. It's stating that that person may end up with something like this, right? And if you are something like this, then if A gives B, B gives C, then you can say that definitely he can even get into something else. So this is actually a simple discrete mathematics that function and the relation related things based on the set theory related part. They are simply applying it and they are inferring some of the things and doing it. Now, how is it possible? For a human being, it is not possible to do these calculations very fast because your data set is so huge. Because people might be buying things from across the globe from different supermarkets. So what you will do, you will buy the data. For example, I am running a masala company. I will go and buy data from supermarket. Who and all people buy what and all items. Then this particular person, maybe the person who is running pharmaceutical company, he might be going and visiting some of the fast food industry, some of the very specific industry. We know that it is not a healthy food. Knowingly, people go and eat some places. So from there, if they collect the details, they will get to know what are the different kind of problems probably he or she might be facing with respect to stomach or something. So then accordingly, they can collect the data of the people and they can send the message to that corresponding thing. So now this is the way the current business world is running. It is just a exaggeration. Sometimes it may be an exaggeration, but all businesses are running like this now. Now, a typical example to tell this particular kind of thing is, for example, we all are used to online newspaper nowadays. So when you are referring an online newspaper, in our olden days, you all remember if there is a particular advertisement, that advertisement will be static. Means the same advertisement will be there for whole day. Means it is not going to change. For example, something like a Tanishq Gold or Kalyan Jewelers or Kalyan Silks or whatever, some jewelry or some textiles industry, these things will be there for days. But nowadays it is not like that. For example, today I am buying a shirt through my Amazon platform or a Flipkart platform. Because I buy a shirt through Flipkart, then what I'm going to do is next day when I am opening the Amazon app or the Flipkart app in my mobile, definitely what I'm going to see is I will see a a trouser or a pant advertisement, and it says that this will match with your yesterday's shirt, because they know what is the color which I purchased yesterday. If it is a light color shirt, it will tell you a contrast or a high contrast or a dark color pant, and it says that it will perfectly match with your shirt which you purchased yesterday. Then I may get a temptation and I will click on that and I will go and jump and buy for it. How is it possible? It is possible through these mechanisms. Your data is being shared between companies. That is why I specifically told in the last, if everything is from the same company, there is nothing to invest with respect to that big organization, because data will be flowing from process to process, and some information will be extracted using machine learning powerful tools, and the business will be driven accordingly. Now, how is, because we usually hear two types, AI and machine learning. Is AI and ML are same? That's what the first question is. So AI is something like a human-like systems, and machine learning is something very task specific, because I wanted to solve a particular problem using man-like methods. Then I'll call that as a machine learning problem, because machine learning is generally used to solve a particular problem. Now, what is AI? AI is very generic, because it is like you are going to build a human, it will be able to solve. Basically, AI is a subset of, ML is a subset of AI. AI is the superset, right? But so many machine learning algorithms will, end of the day, means finally it will end up with a proper AI system. That's what I wanted to tell. Now, how far we are, or how near we are from AI to ML, right? So basically there are two things: how fast a machine can learn, and how generic the learning pattern is. Now, with respect to any machine learning algorithm, there is something called learning. Now, what do you mean by that learning? So learning is a process, right, which will be actually concluding or understanding behavior of a particular data. That's what the process of learning is all about. Now, how do you say that, learning happening in the human? For example, I wanted to build a system to classify a adult versus child. Okay, I wanted to build a automated system. Means I am going to make a door. If a adult comes, he will allow to enter inside the room. If a child comes, the admission will be denied. Okay, and there is no human being in front of that particular door. It is only a robot or some kind of a software and hardware kind of architectures which I'm going to make there. Now, how I am going to make the systems? Because the only input is some human being will be coming in front of the door, and your system should take a decision whether it is a child or a adult. Now, what are the different features probably I can use? Can anybody tell in this forum? Can I take height as one parameter? Is it possible? Height. So I'm just thinking that height can be one parameter. Assume something like that. So I'm considering height as one of the parameters. So what I'm doing is, I am just going to deploy a software program, and with some such of hardware. What it does is, if you go near to that particular door, it will automatically measure your height. And if height is below something, then it is conclude that it is child. If height is above something, it conclude that it is adult. Now, in this case, what I'm doing is, I'm going to model it, the entire system. Okay, the way I'm modeling it is like that. That's what I'm telling. So what I'm telling is, suppose a height, right? A height above, for example, I am considering height above 120 are considered as adult, right? And height less than this, less than 120, I am considering as child, right? So this is what the model which I built. Now this program I am going to deploy it in the software as part of the my automatic door opening system, right? Then what will happen? people will come, system will automatically measure height. If it is this one, then adult will be permitted, otherwise he'll be detained. Now, some point you will realize that there may be some child whose height is more than 120, then he will come here, but his age might be, 12 year or 13 year or something, right? Then he will get admitted into that room as adult, just because this height is one of the parameters you considered. Then you will realize that this particular parameters you extracted out of this particular context is not a good parameter, because the reason is there are few cases where the feature vector height or the data you extracted from the point is not a reliable parameter. You need to go for something else more. Now, what is the something else which I'm going to put? For example, now assume that this is only a man, right? There is no woman involved in this. Then probably what I'll do is I can probably scan the face. Now I'm saying that face. I'll also check the face. Face for what? Face for whether he have beard and mustache, right? But then also your algorithm will fail. The reason is why? Because there are some people, even adult may go in a clean shave mode, and there are some child, probably he may get early stages of this thing. So in both the cases, your algorithm will fail. So now you see, if you deploy a human being in this kind of places, human being will intelligently take the decision, right? So it means that is the difference between a machine-based approach and a human-based approach. But because in the machine-based approach, you can only set the rule and you can only say whether you should go or not, go beyond or go beyond, something like that. So you cannot have anything more than that. So now how a machine learn is, you are going to tell this kind of rules to the system, right? That is what the learning is all about. So you are going to set the rule based on the data property. Now, how are you going to approximate or understand the property of a data? That is where you are using so many statistical methods to extract the property of the data. I'll come to that part maybe a little later. So now, once the learning process is over, there are different kind of stages. Like your data will be analyzed for syntactic analysis, or your input will be analyzed for syntax first, then it will be analyzed for semantics, then it will go for pragmatic. But anyway, this pragmatic part is a very higher level. Even now, I'm sure we are not in a position to touch this part even now. We have reached up to syntactic and semantic. Now let's see the difference. For example, in the previous example, I have already shown you, I couldn't believe that the letters in a word should be in a proper way or something like that. Now, if you do a syntax check for that particular sentence, it will say that it is completely syntactically error, because there is no word which is written proper way. So syntactically, it will be completely error, right? Now, when you are putting a machine learning kind of algorithms in place, probably it should be able to understand, because some extent it will do the correction and things like that, right? Now, the syntactic analysis is nothing but it will check whether syntactically or the input output thing, input is in a specific format, it is in an acceptable format or not. That is the only thing which will check by the syntactics part of any algorithms, right? Now, assume that I'm going to deploy a robot in my house for my household work. Now I wanted a cup of tea. So maybe if the robot is programmed in such a way that if I need to request for a tea, I have to use something like provide me tea. Maybe this may be the sentence it might be recognizing. But instead of that, if I say, give me a tea, please, one tea, or one tea, please. So I can use multiple ways, right? Now, if I say one tea, please, maybe your robot may not recognize, because as part of its vocabulary, it may not have trained properly. Now, if your robot is trained in all possible kind of input, then probably your robot will be responding to all kind of input which is coming in. Otherwise, your system won't respond. That is where the robot fails. But in a human being, even if you say I'll go somewhere, some places, even if I'm not in a position to talk to their language, if I use some gestures with help of thumb finger towards my mouth, it is giving an impression that I want a cup of water or I want tea, right? Now, these kind of analysis. So what will happen is, any kind of machine learning will do the syntax analysis first, And if syntactically things are, there is no error, then it will go for analyzing the meaning. Now, if the meaning is correct, then it will perform the operation. For example, I am just saying that, please, for example, I am just saying tea, please, right? Tea, please. This is the statement I am giving. So then tea, please. So when I am saying this thing, tea, please, then this syntactically it will analyze. Suppose if syntactically it is correct, then it will convert it into a semantic meaning. Semantic is something like give. This is what the tea. This is the semantics part, right? Give. What is to be given? I should give tea, right? To whom? For example, John asked. So John, right? So, and if someone else tells, can you give tea? Can you, can you give tea? Right? So this can be one another thing. Can you give tea? So that also will be converted into give tea to John. And if someone else asks only one sentence, one word, tea, that's it. Tea and with some gestures, that also will be converted into this. So basically, you convey your messages in any one of the format, but it will convert it into a semantic format, right? Give tea to the John. Now this is going to be executed by that machine. Means tea should be given to John. Now whatever the procedure it need to be done, that function will be implemented, and this is the way the robots are programmed. This is the way all machine learning or robotic kind of things are programmed, like this kind of. So here these all are input space with respect to me. These all are input space. Now this input space need to be mapped to the output space, right? That is nothing but the semantic part. So I'll be doing semantic analysis, and that will be converted into the corresponding meaning of it. Now this is the last part of this thing. Now what is this here? It is called a pragmatic analysis. Now what do you mean by pragmatic analysis? This is actually a very higher level concept in machine learning or AI. For example, I'm sure whoever assembled in this forum are teachers. So we all take classes to the students, and sometimes we also, maybe because of some importance of with respect to that, we will announce some special classes and things like that. Maybe one professor, he is planning to conduct a class at 10 o'clock, and he told all students, everybody should be there in the class exactly at 10 o'clock, because I'm going to discuss a new topic today, and I want each one of you to be there in the class. But unfortunately, one student is coming very late. He came around, maybe his class started at 10 o'clock, and the student came to the class at 10:30. Then obviously, being a teacher, you will ask the question to the student. Being a teacher, what you will ask? You will probably ask a student that, why are you late? That is a direct question. But if you are really irritated, instead of asking the question, why are you late, you might be asking a question in another way, like, what is the time now, right? Because a student supposed to reach the class at 10 o'clock, but he came at 10:30. So professor is getting irritated, and he asked a question, what is the time now? Now, as per our input-output specification, the kind of answer supposed to be told by the student is, what could be the answer? Ideally, with respect to a machine learning, this kind of a scenario, what is the answer he should give it back? What is the time now? Can anyone please? Hope you are able to hear me. I didn't disconnect. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, so now what is the kind of answer we are expected is like 10:30, right? But if the students say that answer 10:30, the professor will get irritated, because instead of that, if the student tells, sir, actually, I need to go to hospital, or I went to some other place where I missed my bus, right? And if he say that answer, probably the professor will be happy. Now you see the kind of question and kind of answer he has given. Actually, teacher wanted to ask the question, why are you late? But instead of that, teacher asked the question, what is the time now? And student should tell without, so in order to make the situation good, without getting it worse, students supposed to give an answer, sir, I missed my bus or I got delayed due to some other reasons, so that your situation is perfect and proper. Means that is ideal answer. But instead of that, if student give an answer 10:30 to the direct question what is asked by student, situation gets worse. Now you see, teacher didn't ask the question what he is supposed to ask. Instead of that, his actual question, he kept it in mind and he framed a question in a different way. And student actually answered the question which is there in the mind of the faculty, not actually what faculty asked you. Hope you are getting what I am telling. And now, actually, the direct answer for the question, what is the time now, is 10:30. It is not my bus is late. So it means you actually asked a question which is different, but you are satisfied because you got an answer for what is there in the question of your mind. You know, this particular modeling, the typical modeling of this thing is being done using hidden Markov models. The people who are familiar with Markov chain and Markov models, they already know that these concepts, because the hidden state will be kept separately and your output state will be something different. So there is a well proven theory behind it. Now, if somebody is actually working on this pragmatic analysis, they should be really master in HMM and allied concepts, because there, and here also there is a problem. Every time when you ask a question, what is the time now, doesn't mean that you are asking for why are you late. Suppose if in a genuine context, if somebody is asking for what is the time now, that actual question is what he actually asked. So you are doing a context analysis. Now, what is this context analysis? Probability of, that is what I'm going to tell you here. So probability of, so what is the context analysis you are doing here? So probability of a particular thing, given that a specific some incident B is happened. Now, what is that B is happened? Means what is the probability that he will ask the question, right? What is the time now in the direct context, given that he is in this situation? What is the probability that he will ask this question? Probability. What is the time now in a sarcastic way, given that he is in this situation, right? So these kind of analysis need to be done very extensively if you are building a robot which is capable enough to process the pragmatic level instructions. So now that's what I'm telling, how far we are and how near we are to a real human-like systems. It is actually we are very much far. Now let's see this. I think this is one of the interesting cartoon which I find it from net, and I think I have been using it for some time. It's from PY4U. So there is a person who is actually using like, hey, artificial intelligence, why are you wearing this mask, right? So he tried to remove the mask and he say that it's statistics, and he is keeping it. So even though this is actually a simple cartoon, but there is an interesting story behind it. The reason is, the moment you say whatever the things which we are doing in artificial intelligence and these things, and you categorized under machine learning and artificial intelligence as a mathematics subject, there will be many people who may not come and take the subject at all. The reason is, in the beginning itself, they have an impression that mathematics is very difficult. I don't want to get into that because it is, sometimes they'll say that it is very difficult, it is boring, so I am not able to understand what is actually happening, but I am simply solving some of the equations. That is what the reality. Especially when I was a student also, I thought like where I will use some of this concept. But when I started really practicing some of the real project work, then I realized the importance of that. These all are the mathematics which I have learned in my 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and my degree semesters. So it means if you say that this machine learning is a statistics or a mathematics subject, definitely people may not touch it. That is what the reality. That is why probably I can say that it is actually a fake mask which is used by the statistics to attract people into the domain of mathematics through a word called machine learning and AI. That is what the reality. Now let's see that how justifiable it is. What are the fundamental building blocks of a AI or a machine learning system? I think there are some questions in the chat. Okay. So what are the fundamental building blocks? Now, the different fundamental building blocks of any AI system is there are non-linear and linear related things. So, we all know that vectors, matrices, eigenvectors, principal component analysis, and many non-linear system and its properties. These all are part of the normal AI or machine learning based systems. And we all learned or learning these concepts in our 11th, 12th, or first year, second year engineering streams. Most of these mathematics like vectors, and these things are directly applying to that. That is what interesting thing. And the whole robotics is all about the mathematics. I will come to that. Maybe end of the talk, I have some small examples or two to justify, to tell you that this is what is happening. So my appeal to each one of you is, when you are teaching mathematics, I think you have to bring some of these kind of element into the class. And I think it is a high time mathematics also should start a practical sessions, like practical labs for mathematics. But unfortunately, mathematics is not having any lab sessions nowadays. But I think soon you have to start. And these are some of the examples or some of the lab sessions. Probably you can give it as part of mathematical course. And another one of the major thing is probability and statistics. The entire machine learning concept or AI based systems are solely depends on some of the probability and statistics concepts, which even include Bayes theorem, maximum likelihood estimations, random variable related postulates and theories, distribution functions. This is very important because distribution, we are familiar with many distribution functions, which even including binomial distribution, Poisson distribution, uniform distribution, normal distribution. All these distribution functions are very extensively used in most of the machine learning methods to actually analyze the data levels. For example, some simple cases I can say, most of the machine learning features, what we will check is it should be normally distributed. If it is normally distributed, that is going to be a very good foolproof mechanism that features are good. One means one condition. It is not a sufficient condition. It can be a necessary condition, I should say. Okay, it's a necessary condition. It's not a sufficient condition. So in this particular case, first what you will do is you will extract some of the, for example, in my previous cases, I have taken height as one of the parameters for classifying a child versus height. Now what I'll do, I will take the height of various adult people. I will take the height of various child population. Then this height, I will be putting it in a graph. Then I found that, the average height of an adult is closely around 120 and average height of a child is somewhere around 100 centimeter. Another one is 120 centimeter. So now what I'm going to see here is, now suppose if I'm drawing a graph here, right? So this is actually here. So I'm seeing that average height of a child is around 100 meter, right? Average height of a child is around 100 meter and average height of a adult is around 120 meter, right? So what I'll get is, maybe this is the child case, right? So I may be probably getting a curve like this. I'm sorry, 100 should be here. Okay, 100 should be here. Okay, I'm just writing here 100. So forget about this. Is not the case. So on the x-axis, here maybe number of the high something else, number of classes or students or something. So now if I take another thing, so of course we know that this is a famous bell curve which we all are familiar now. It's basically for normal distribution. Now what is happening? It says that the total population strength, the average height of human being is 100, right? 100. So most of the classes means 90, 95, 90, 97 point, I think. Yeah. So that many populations are actually belongs to this class. Means the people will be having the height of 100. Right? Now in the child, you might be doing like this. Now, some cases, what happen is, why we are telling adult is, sorry, this height is not a reliable parameter for classifying adult versus human is, for example, sometimes what happen is, if your distribution is like this, so definitely there will be an overlapping region. There will be an overlapping region, what you are seeing here, that is actually intersecting with the, the mean of the other class. Suppose this is for child and this is for adult. Now, some of the areas are actually intersecting with the mu minus sigma part of the other class 2. This is class 2 means adult, this is class 1. So because of this intersection, there is a chance that some of the samples from this class may probably misclassify as class 2, or some of the class 2 can be wrongly classified into class 1. So then I will conclude that height may not be a possible method. So all these decisions are being done based on these kind of, theoretical details, this probability distribution, distribution functions and things like that. And there are some of the transformation functions which we are using in machine learning, like fast Fourier transformation, cosine transformation, discrete Fourier transformation, Laplace transformation. All these transformation functions also have. Now, why do we need the transformation function? Because you all know that that's one of the simple transformation function is log, which people have been using it for years. Now, what was the purpose behind the log function? Log function is, suppose I have a very small number or I have a very large number, right? If I take a log of it, I will bring that particular big number or small number into a range which I can probably handle with pencil and pen. That was the purpose. For example, I wanted to do an operation like 0.0000, so many zeros and 1. And some places I have a number 2, 3, 4, some big number. So both the number, when I am doing the calculations in a conventional way using pencil, pen or normal method, then it will be difficult. So then what I'll do, I'll apply a log on this. Then this thing will eventually convert it into a 4 to 5 digit handleable number, right? A number which I can manually handle. Then I perform the operation. Then after performing the operation, probably I'll do an anti-log of it. I can convert back to this session kind of things, right? I can actually take it back to this smaller level. And it is a very well proven method. So these transformation functions, I have been using it for years now. But log is basically for making our computational job easy. But some of the transformation functions are not for simple purpose of making computational easy. It have a different purpose. For example, a Fourier transformation or a cosine transformation is being used in various machine learning techniques. Some of the cases like, solving speech recognition problem, image recognition related problem, image problem related to image and video recognition, problem related to speech recognition. We are using some of this Fourier transformation concept to extract some of the feature from speech signal so that the speech will be recognized properly. And we have to write the algorithm for that. But you know that being a mathematical professor, you are the right people to guide computer science people to do such kind of things. But unfortunately, some of the current cases, especially in the engineering stream and things like that, we are not in a position to teach the subject by giving a correlation with the corresponding practical incidents. So my simple appeal to each one of you is, whatever you teach in mathematics, you have one way or another way you can find some practical application, especially in artificial intelligence. You will find a room to put all your fundamental mathematical theories, most of the things. Okay, now, if you look at the machine learning algorithms, there are two wider classifications. One is learning style, another one is based on similarity. Now, based on the learning style, there are two kind of methods: supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Now, let me tell you what is the supervised learning first. For example, I wanted to have a classification system, right? So basically, a system should be classified two kind of objects. So the object type 1 is, I am taking a star kind of object. Okay, this is the object type 1. Second type of object is a circular kind of thing. Okay, so these are the two kind of. So the star can be in different state. Right, and circle can be also in a different shape, slightly bigger, right? So basically it will have some kind of an abruptness surface. So these all are into the classes of star, and this kind of object, when it comes, you will classify into a circle class. Now a new object is coming. Okay, now because now I am teaching you, suppose you are a machine, I am telling that if this kind of abrupt surface comes, if any abruptness, for example here, if you take it a polygon kind of shape, I can say that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 polygons. So my conclusion is like that. If a outer surface is having one or more polygon kind of, or a triangular or a polygon kind of shapes, then I say that this is in the class 1. And if zero surface abruptness like this kind of things, then I say that it is a class 2, basically circle, class 2. Now a new object is coming. What is that new object? Where it will best fit? Where this object will be best fit? Anyone? Whether now this new incoming symbol, where it will best fit, whether it will fit into class 1 or class 2?
Maybe class 2.
Class? Yes, ma'am.
It's class 2.
Class 2. You are telling this one is class 2. Any reason, ma'am?
Because there are so many edges in class 1. So here, according to that, machine will learn that it will be related to class.
But class 1 actually there is no edges. No, it is only one single. There is no abruptness in the surface, right? My perception is it should go to class 1, because here I have so many things. So many means one or more, right? But in the circular thing, I am expecting that they're almost a smooth kind of surface. So my theory is it should ideally go to class 1. Now, if you come up something like this, again it will go to this one. Now, if I get some object like this, probably it will put it into class 2, right? Now, in the supervised learning, the way things are happening is you extract some numbers or some numerals from this kind of features. Okay, now I say that its surface is not smooth, or it having a multiple edges. Circle, it have only one, maybe I can say only one edge or a 0 edge kind of, but here you have multiple edges. Now, if multiple edges are there, probably I will tell that belongs to class 1, and if edges are exactly 1, then I'll say it is a class 2 kind of objects. Now once I fix the learning line like this, if a new things comes, if now I say that this is like this is the learning, edges thing. So this is the place where I put 1. So if anything less than 1 or less, it will be in the class 1. If anything more, it will come. It's more or less a straightforward problem, right? In this particular case. But when you take a little more complex problem, because every time you may not be having one parameter to decide whether it belongs to here or here. So there may be many other parameters. Now, for example, I have two classes, class 1 and class 2. Okay, I have two classes, class 1 and class 2. For example, I am writing a letter. It can be like, what should I say? For example, 2 letters, right? 2 Hindi letters. I am writing, A. Okay, A and E. This is what I wanted to do, right? Now, means only I need to, because A belongs to class 1, E belongs to class 2. And this is a handwriting recognition problem. Handwriting recognition is a typical, machine learning problem. Now, how it is being solved? Now, let's see. I have a A here. I have a E here. Now these are the two classes which are possible. But if someone else can write like this, it can still recognize as A, and someone else write like this. It can still recognize as A. Right? These all are different flavors of R. Each individual write in different way. Similarly, E also people write in a different way. Right? Each one is considered as E. Now you see this all are E's and this all are R's. Now if a something new comes like this, then you will put it into R. But how system can do it? Now we need to convert this letter into some numeral format. What is that numeral format? That's what I'm going to write here. For example, I have a R here. Okay, so this R I cannot directly give to a program because this is only an image. So I cannot give directly to this program. So for that, what I'll do is I will draw some kind of a rectangular region in the image. I'll draw a rectangular region in the image. Then what I'll do is I'll find a medium of it, medium. Then I can actually draw few lines like this. And this is line 1. Okay, this is line 1. So I write 1. And this line is from here, it is 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7 and 8. Now what I'm going to do is number of intersection point in each line with respect to this letter. Now you see here, number of intersection point are 1 and 2 for R, right? For a class R, for line number 1, I have 2 intersection points, right? And line number 2, I have maybe 1 intersection point. Then line number 3, I have 1, 2 intersection point. So similarly, I compute for everything. So I'll be getting some numbers like this. So now what I did is this physical letter R, I converted into these kind of things. So in a way, I can say this is actually a transformation of the actual data into some feature vectors. Now, this particular method is known as feature engineering in machine learning. And you know, this is being properly done. This has to be done in an atmosphere because anything go wrong, or if the feature vector, the kind of feature you extracted are not proper, then your classification algorithm will drastically fail. So this is where, you know, your mathematical people's capability will work here. And this is why data science people are paid high, because this is an example for a character recognition. Okay, because these kind of problems are already solved in many places. But in a typical cases, from a given data, people should be able to convert that data into these kind of feature vectors. Okay, so that's what I'm going to discuss next. Anyway, I'm going to come to that particular part. So this is actually a wide space of machine learning algorithms. Now, if you look at here, anyway, I'm discussing that feature vector also a little bit. So this is a wide spectrum of you know, various machine learning algorithms. Okay, so that's why I'm telling there are methods like, you know, supervised learning, unsupervised learning. There are decision tree based methods. There is a classification purely based on Bayesian techniques, because these all categories of algorithms are working based on Bayes theorem. And Bayes theorem is a non theorem for the mathematicians, right? And there are multiple methods, multiple machine learning algorithms which strongly backed by Bayesian theorem and decision tree theorem, dimensionality reduction. Anyway, that is a principal component analysis and many things. And for example, clustering. Clustering is also a known thing to many of the statistic people who are working in statistics, right? So this is basically the different machine learning algorithms people are using across the globe. I just categorized and placed it. Now, Yeah. Now this is what I was telling you. Like you are going to start, you collect the data. Then this is where I was little sometimes back I was giving a little emphasis on that. Once you collect the, so what do you mean by the collecting data? Collecting data means when you wanted to train a machine learning algorithm, you collect the samples like this. You ask many people to write in different shapes, right? Now like this you are going to tell and you are going to collect the data. Once you collect the data, then the next job is you have to convert it into features. Now this feature conversion is the one thing which I explained to you sometimes back. Like this is one of the feature I am proposing now. Whether this feature is right or not, that you have to mathematically prove, because there are various ways to do that. I will tell you that how to do that also. Now this is one example. Now in this example what I used is, for example, let me take this an example here. Yeah, this is a typical example here, like character recognition problem. So I am doing like this, and I am taking the corresponding intersection points here, right? Different intersection points are taken here. Now what will happen if I draw this a little this way or this way? But still you will read this as A. For you this is also A, this is also A, this is also A, because that is what, because our interest is to build a human like systems. So you will read this as A, this as A, and this as A. But if you do this kind of diagonal crossing testing experiment, or the line crossing feature extraction, means in this particular case this is the feature vector extraction method which I am proposing. But if this feature vector extraction, if I am using it for any of these kind of things, probably my algorithm will fail, means it may not recognize this kind of variations. Now in order to accommodate that kind of variations, can anyone tell what can be a feature probably which I can modify this? Can anyone tell? For example, I have a written here like this. Instead of this this method, is there any other method which I can probably try? Because the reason also you know that now, because if I am rotating this A like this, but still you will read this as an A, but number of intersection with respect to this will drastically change, because probably sometimes I have to say that there is no intersection with respect to the line at all. So in such kind of method, probably I may go for something different. This kind of concentric circles. So some extent, even if it is rotation happens also, I should be able to do it. But don't think that A should always have, crossing in first line. Some places it will have crossing in first line. Suppose if the same A, if I am writing a little bit like this, maybe this number of crossing may not be working here. There will be a difference. So some variations will be there. So that will be automatically accommodated when you are actually, your algorithm is processing or classifying in class 1 or class 2. Now when I instead of using this kind of a triangle, rectangle, and this kind of line method, if I change it to a circular based techniques or a circles, some extent I can say that even if this A rotates some point, still the number of crossing point within the circle will maintain as it is. So then I will say that the kind of feature I extracted is rotational invariant. So I can say that this feature which I extracted is rotational invariant. So this is where actually we have to spend a lot of time in machine learning, because when you collect the data, an appropriate feature vector should be extracted, and this feature vector will be used for performing the classification. Now if your feature vector is not proper, then your classifier will drastically fail. So your entire success of the machine learning algorithm is solely depends on kind of features you are using for classifying the problem. When you are making a feature, there are few guidelines. Of course, there is no golden rule how feature should be selected. Okay, but there are few directions. One is a reduction in computational complexity, because you assume that in your actual data have 300 numbers, right? For example, I have an image, right? I am writing, maybe for example, I am writing A here. Now what will happen if I write A, and if I cut, if I exactly cut like this and store it as an image, right? If I am cutting this and storing it as an image, there may be a maybe 50 pixels on the in a row, and there are 180 pixels in a, means 180 pixels row, and there are 50 pixels columns. Now this is the size of the image. Means pixel, you know that what is pixel. Pixel is a one small entity in the image. That is the way the image is represented in the computer, right? Because each pixel. So this is one pixel. This is like this, like that. I have 50 pixels in a row, and the same way I have 100 pixels in a 180 pixels in a in this format. Now, when you are computing something out of it, what I did is I used the line. I have drawn line like this, and I have converted that into 8 numbers. Right? This is what you have seen there. Right? 8 numbers. What is that 8 numbers? Because I have only collected the corresponding intersection point with respect to that numbers like this. Now you see that 80 into 50 into 180. So the probably this may be so this may be 6,000, right? So total 6,000 number of pixels are there. So each pixel is having a red, blue, green value. So actual image is a 6,000 pixel value, but you converted that particular image into a 8 number, and you assume that these 8 numbers are capable enough to conclude that this is a letter A and another letter is B. Now you see here, you have drastically reduced the feature set from 6,000 to 8 numbers, 8, total 8. So it is actually a drastic reduction. But when this reduction happens, definitely if the input size is small, your algorithm also will require a less computational time. But the problem is when you are doing such kind of a transformation from one bigger number set to a smaller number, loss of information loss will happen. So this information loss is really significant, then probably you may not be able to recognize that particular class. So this test need to be done. The amount of information loss happened and such kind of things also will be properly studied when people actually extracting the features from a given data for solving a machine learning problem. Okay, so what are the things required? Basically, to become a machine learning scientist, definitely he need to know the domain, and he should definitely need to know how to derive this kind of features. And once the features are extracted, the discriminant power with respect to that feature should be properly studied. What is the discriminant power? Because the kind of feature, for example, from this image A, I extracted 8 numbers, and another image B also I extract the same 8 numbers. But these 8 numbers which I extracted from A should be totally different from B. Now, if these 2 samples are intersecting, then I can say that my kind of feature I extracted is not right, and my machine learning algorithm may not be able to work. That is the reason actually that height is not a reliable parameter, because there is an intersection of height which we have seen in case of adult and child, because there are some region where the height of child is exactly intersecting with height of an adult. So this is what the error region with respect to your machine learning algorithm, because this all data set belongs to this region will either a child may classify as adult, an adult may classify as adult. So you have to go for another feature, because height is not a good feature for classifying a child versus adult. The same thing happens here also, right? So here, once you apply the feature vector, definitely you need to have a good domain knowledge on your working, and it is actually a costly method. That is why the machine learning scientists are paid high. and the function should have a good discrimination power. Means the feature extracted from A should be totally different from B. So if you do a normal plot, an ideal best case is you should ideally get a normal curve in a distribution class like this, class A and class B. So it means the features of class A is not at all intersecting with class B. So it means that your classification algorithm will properly segregate A and B. But this is actually an ideal case which will never happen in most of the feature selection methods. Now, what is the objective function with respect to a machine learning algorithm? Probabilistic separability and interclass distance. So we should maintain the classes between two things at the maximum. Anyway, I'll come to that particular part with a graphical representation. Now, what is the main underlying one of the major things which we use? One is that is nothing but the normal distributions. So normal distribution, it means suppose if you have class 1, you have class 2, class 3, etc., class n. You have n classes to be properly segregated. That is what your challenge. Now, when you are doing such kind of a separation, class 1 versus class 2, as I told, you take a normal curve for class 1, right? So there should not be an overlap with class 2, which I already told. Now, if there is an overlap, then you say that the feature you have extracted is not right. Now, this is where the mathematicians play a bigger role in machine learning organization, machine learning devising techniques, or in some of the private companies where you will be asked to analyze the data and tell the behavior of the data to the computer science people. Whether can this particular numbering or can this particular feature extraction techniques can be used for implementing and classifying a given problem. So being a mathematician, you will be giving a correct direction to the science programmers whether this particular method should be used or not. So for that, one of the major things we use the normal distribution. So the sample should be normally distributed, because if the kind of feature you extracted itself it's not following a normal distribution, then you cannot use that particular feature for modeling that particular class, because the data which you are extracted from the for the class doesn't follow normal distribution. So it is not a common property of that particular class. So you have to drop the feature. Okay, so this is the way people are working for extracting the features for implementing machine learning methods. Now, what are the different kind of things when you are modeling a system? So basically what I'm telling is, when I am modeling a handwriting recognition system, when I say A, I convert this A into some 8 numbers. Then when I say B also I will convert it into, so all 26 letters, I extract this eight numbers out of it. What is that 8 number? Either a cross section with a line or circle or something. Then I get something like this, right? 8 number for each class. Now, sometimes what happens is these feature vectors are reversible. Sometimes the feature vectors are not reversible. So you cannot get it back something, right? For example, there are some of the transformation. This is basically a transformation function. Feature extraction is nothing but a transformation function. You apply on that and you get some numbers, right? So there are some of the transformation functions which are completely reversible, because you can actually convert that into some number, but you do a reverse transformation, you may not get the same number. Okay, or you may not even able to convert it at all. So such kind of functions are called irreversible functions. But there are some of the functions which are reversible, but there will be an information loss. So such kind of transformation functions we call lossy transformation function, and there are some transformation functions completely lossless. So we will see some of the transformation functions also here. Okay, so maybe I will take this win. Okay, so I think speech is little complex. So this is, for example, see, this is one of the function feature extractions which I did, and for recognizing the characters some vowels E, U, A, O, and things like that. Now some of the features I extracted. So these features I plotted here. Now you see here, most of the E's having some behavior. You see this graph, it look alike, and which is totally different from O, right? Because the behavior of O is plotted like this, because I extracted some 20 numbers out of each vowel letters, means some pronunciation speech. So you see here, is following some pattern, which is totally different from O. But if you look at here, there is some similarity between E and U. Means some of the E's E graph is look alike like O. So what is it says? It says that there is a chance that within the kind of feature which you have extracted, there is a chance that some of the letters of E may probably classify as U, and there are some of the letters classified in U can be classified as E because it look alike. But if you compare this and this, you can say that this particular class is totally different from this. So it means there is a 0% chance a E will be classified as O or O will be classified as A because its feature vector shows a sufficient discrimination from the other things, right? So now this is the way mathematicians are analyzing the property of a data and advising computer programmers to perform or implementing such kind of methods as part of the system. Okay, so now another interesting thing is online handwriting recognition. Now, what is this online? Because we all are familiar with our Google keyboard, Google language keyboard. So sometimes we all started writing in Kannada, Malayalam, English and all, right? Hindi and all. So you use the Google handwriting keyboard. You write your own language like Hindi, Malayalam and all there, and things recognize and do it. How is it doing? For example, now I'm just see here. Now this is the current point. From here I am moving like this, so my movement is like this. So I wrote 3 here. Now when I wrote 3 here, you see the kind of movement which happened from this current position. From the current position here, okay, I moved to the next position here, right? So when I moved here, you can see that there are 8 directions. So I have one direction 1, 0 here, 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like this. So from here to here, this is equivalent to 0. So I'm moving from one point to another point. So this direction is equivalent to 0. So it generates a number 0 here. Now from here, I have a next point here. So that is also in the same direction. So this direction is nothing but 0. So I'm generating the number 0 here. Now again same. Here also I generate the number 0. But now here, from here, I am moving towards here. So in this movement, this is towards down, right? I'm moving from this point, I am moving down. Down in the sense, corresponding number is 6. Again further down, 6. Then I am moving like this, little diagonally. Little diagonally means like this. Like this means this is equivalent to 5. So this movement is equivalent to 5. So this entire thing I will be read this one. Then this corresponding letter 3, I will model it as 0, 0, 0, then 6, 6, 5, and so on. So I'll get some series of numbers like this. So this entire number 3, when I am making this gesture using this my pen, I will be generating something like this, some big series. And this series will be used for concluding that I am writing 3. So this is a feature. This is actually a domain transformation from this geometric shape to this one. This is actually, I am applying a function here now. This function is now if I use this function, can I generate the symbol back? Yes, because I start here, then I say 0. So I move here. Again 0. Yes. Then again 0. Yes. Then 6. Then 6. Then 5. Then 5. Then 4. Right? Then 0. Like this. Then 7. Right? Then 6. 6. Then 4. 4. Like this. Now you see, I wrote the 3 like this, but I am able to reproduce a 3 by using this sequence of numbers, right? I am able to reproduce this thing, but of course it may not be the same as that of this, but still I am able to retrieve the information. So there is an information loss in these feature extraction techniques, but still I am able to recognize, or still I can say that my feature is intelligent enough to conclude that my machine learning algorithm will also recognize when I am writing like this. Now this is one of the algorithms which Google or many people uses for recognizing the online handwriting character. Of course, it's not as it is. Google might be using a fine-tuned, refined version of these things to improve more accuracy. So another interesting function, Fourier transformation. Madam, what time I have to conclude?
Sir, 1 o'clock, sir.
Okay, I think I'm just okay. So okay, I'll just maybe I'll little speed up. So the Fourier transformation. So we all were teaching Fourier transformation in the classes. I know that most of the in the engineering stream there is a topic. What is Fourier transformation? So the Fourier transformation is nothing but you have a complex wave, then you do the transformation, you get a simple harmonic wave corresponding to that. Is that the one same Newton's prism experiment which does? You have a white light. When you send a white light to a prism, what it does is it converted into VIBGYOS. Now each color is actually a simple sinusoidal waves or simple harmonic waves, right? Red is having its own frequency information, violet is having its own frequency information. Now when you do a superimposing of these things, you will be probably getting it back to your white light, right? So basically in the Fourier transformation also, once you have such kind of a very complex wave, then you apply a Fourier transformation on that, you will be getting a corresponding fundamental harmonics waves which are integral part of your actual systems, right? Your actual wave. Now once you get this A1 and W1, A2 W2, A3 W3, A and Wn, then you apply this thing, you should be ideally get it back, right? That is what means you superimpose all these waves, right? You impose all these wave functions. So if you superimpose all these wave functions, you should be able to get this wave back. Then if that is the case, you can say that these are the feature vector associated with that, and these are the transformation, these are the Fourier transform of this particular wave, right? So what I'll do, then if I get the Fourier transformation, I can actually predict the behavior of this particular wave. Now this is actually being done, we have studied in mathematics, but this is being used in computer science as part of machine learning when we analyze the speech signals. Actually speech recognition is a subject which is totally depending on these kind of calculations. Now maybe I think I have some more things to finish it up. So I'll quickly tell how a training works now. Okay, training is actually a process. Now you see this, because I already discussed about some feature selection. Now because I have two classification problem, I need to classify class 1 versus class 2, and I have two features x1 and x2. Now this is the way I'm doing it. Now this is the object 1, right? Now what I'll do is I will draw a simple line here. So it says that anything above this is class 1, anything below this is class 2. Now I'm training the system. Okay, now the second sample comes. Second sample is also of same type. Now equation of a line, we know that it's actually y is equal to mx plus c, right? Mx plus c. So now what is actually you can do, either you can change the slope or you can change the intercept. So if you make changes in one of the things, so if you make the changes in the intercept by retaining the slope as it is, the line may come down or line can go up. So means I can draw a line parallel to this line. So basically when you are doing a training operation using machine learning, I might be simply doing the that y-intercept operation, doing some analysis. So now what I have to do, this is class 1 and this object is also in class 1. So in order to accommodate this element in class 1, I have to lower this line little down. So what I'll do a for loop operation. So when I do for loop operation, when I equal to 1, C intercept will be this, C intercept is like this, so it will come here and it will accommodate here. So you understood now. So when this for loop is working, it will try with next, and finally it will get settled here. That is what it is happening here. So it is getting settled here now, right? Now I'm taking another sample now. There is no problem. This is also class 1. All samples are in same class. Now you see another type of sample come, but this line of separation still valid because this sample is in class 2. There is no problem. Nothing to be done in this particular case. Now you see that I got another element. This is a training process. So these all are class 1. These all are class 2. So this is in another element. Another element means now what happened? This particular line of separation says that this element is in class 1. So definitely if I make any changes up and down of this line, it will not work. Means any changes I make only based on the y-intercept will not work. I have to make some changes in the slope as well. Now, what is the meaning of making changes in the slope? This line will be either tilting towards this direction or this line will be tilting towards this direction, right? That is what the slope. So it will be start tilting based on some origin. So now you see that. So every time what is happening is your for loop is working. So I equal to 1, I equal to 2, your slope is keep on changing. Now, some point you will fix here. Now you can see that it is properly, it is properly separated. Now this is what the line of separation. So here this one. Now in this training process is nothing but you are adjusting the slope of the line in a two-dimensional space, or if it is a multi-class problem or a multi-feature problem, more than 2 classes, it will actually become a plane. Okay, it will actually become a plane. So this is only you have 2 features. That is why I can draw a line. Suppose if it is having more than 1 classes, it will be a plane kind of things. That plane is nothing but the the kind of things which you can see here now. Right? This is what the separation plane. So you have class 1 and class 2. So now let me take the another interesting non-unsupervised learning method. So this is called K nearest neighborhood methods. This is also a simple unsupervised learning method. So what it does is you have different kind of methods. You have different kind of samples, like you have a blue or you have a red triangle and blue, and class 2 is blue rectangle. Now a new sample came. Okay, maybe it is not circled, it's a question mark. You don't know whether it is actually blue or red. So then what it will do is it will map to the feature space and it will find out what is the nearest sample. So suppose the first sample it hit is k is equal to 1, so it is blue color. Then this sample will conclude that I belongs to blue. But if you increase the distance, k is equal to 3, means it is concluding by meeting the next neighbor in the feature space. So k equal to 1. Now k equal to 3 means it will try to find out 3 nearest neighbors of him. When 3 nearest neighbors captures, you have 1 and another 2. Then it will find that I have more inclination towards this red color. Then this sample will convert itself into a class 2 if the k is equal to 3. Now this is what it is happening here now, because this will decide whether I belongs to blue or for pink. So here I see that it will getting more pole from pink. So this black color will convert it into a pink color. Means the incoming sample will conclude that I am a object of pink type, not blue type. So this is the way. This is actually whatever the number we extracted, that we are actually mapping to a feature vector space, and this method is being done based on the nearest neighbor analysis. Now another class is a support vector machine. Now you see, if you look at the support vector machine here, so I have 2 classes problem. So I have to draw a separation line. Now what is the best line to separate this thing? I can draw infinite line between these 2 classes. Now what is the best line fit to separate this thing, right? So the best line means I should ensure that the maximum bandwidth between these things. So this is the way that line slope is going to be fixed. You see the way system is fixing. Now this is the best fit. Means it is ensuring the maximum separability between classes. Otherwise, so suppose if it is this, any of these lines may end up with an error and it can bias to this thing. That is why the line slope is adjusting and doing it. This is what the support vector machine does. And the same SVM machine, support vector machine classes, support vector machine algorithm in a 3-dimensional space. Right? Now I need to fix a proper 3D space for that. You see that the way it is fixing. Now this is the optimum plane. So anything comes over this thing, over this plane will be belongs to the class A. All other things will be belongs to the class B, means lower class. So this is only a 2-class problem. If it is a multi-class problem, you will see this kind of many planes left, right, in different dimensions across that. Now the another interesting thing is ANN. I don't think so I'll get enough time to do that. So ANN is also, artificial neural network is also, it's a completely mathematical driven method. Absolutely, I can say there is nothing, computer science involved in this. It's only a pure mathematics. What it does is you have a transformation function and you have an activation function also. So you compute your input vectors. Input vector is nothing but maybe in your letter A, I convert it into feature vector, and this feature vector is of size 8 in our previous example. This 8 will be given as an input. Now this will do a computation and there will be a transformation function. So there are different transformation functions, sigmoid functions, bipolar functions, and many functions that will be implemented here, and it perform the activation operation here, and it converts the results either into a 0 or 1 depending on the nature of transformation function you use. Then these operations will be done with thousands or lakhs of samples, and finally you conclude whether you have a proper system or not. Now let me take the last part about robotics. So the robotics is nothing but maths, because a person who is not at all good in coordinate geometries and coordinate systems, including Cartesian, cylindrical, spherical, and vector scalar manipulations, he may not be able to do anything in robotics, frankly speaking. Now how it comes? For example, you see the way a robot moves. So when a robot moves from one point to another point, right, basically what is happening is you are asking this tool tip moving from one point in the space to another point in the space. So now you take this point in the space. This is actually, I can write, x1, y1, and z1, right? And this space is a new space which is x2, y2, and z2, right? So basically what I am telling, so there is a motor attached here, there is a motor attached here, there is a motor attached here. So what I am telling is I wanted to transfer this point from here to here. So basically a point P1 need to be transferred from P2. So P1 is a matrix. So I apply a transformation function here so that I will get a new point P2. What is that P2? P2 is this one. So what is the transformation matrix which I should use to enable this tooltip to transfer from here? That corresponding instruction will be given to the motor attached in all these junctions, and system will be properly giving the corresponding electrical signals and transferring that. Now let's see how is it happening, because basically you have three different kind of coordinate systems. You have a Cartesian system, you have a cylindrical coordinate system, and you have a spherical coordinate system. So these three coordinate systems, so any robot, industrial robot you take for that matter, it is actually taking one of these concepts. Then it actually make use of this transformation, this the movement based on this transformation. Now you see here, there is a workspace associated with every robot. So if the robot can take only some of the things, so this is what the workspace associated with the robot. So it cannot go beyond it, and it cannot go beyond it, and it cannot take anything less than this. So only whatever you are seeing here, only within this workspace only robot will be able to access. Like this way, geometrically, a workspace will be associated with a robot, industrial robot, and people are designing based on that. Now, what is the way it is happening? It is going to be a rotation or a transformation based on one of the axis in that. Now, what is this rotation? Axis rotation. Axis rotation is nothing but you are performing, if it is in a spherical coordinate system, you have set of points here. You perform one of the rotation, either rotation based on this axis or this axis or this axis, or it is a composite rotation between three axes, and finally you map a point P1 to a different place P2. So this is what the transformation is happening. So when this transformation happens, you apply your actual original coordinate matrix with this composite transformation of this three matrix, and you get a new coordinate in the space. This is what the axis rotation happening, and this is the way the entire robotic trajectory with respect to a process is planned. Now I think it's almost time now, so let me wind up. So the essence of things which I wanted to tell you is, you see that this particular figure I created purposefully. Basically, artificial intelligence or machine learning is nothing but mathematics. That is why I use this pillar, mathematics and statistics. But whatever you see on the other side, the computational power and digital data, this is only a kind of a balloon. Means it cannot exist without mathematics. If you remove this pillar, mathematics pillar, it is only a balloon. It will blast. It will not work. It will not work in the sense this domain itself will not exist. So it means the basic hypothesis which I wanted to tell you is the entire artificial intelligence or a machine learning domain is fully backed by mathematics and statistics, where computational power and high-speed network and digital data is only providing a cushion space for performing the artificial intelligence and machine learning related operations. That's what basically I just wanted to tell the end of this. So thank you. I think if any specific questions, I'll be able to discuss with you.
Any questions from the audience? I think during the talk itself, people have asked the questions to you,
Oh,
sir.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
class one.
Let's see. Okay.
Otherwise, you can mail me, no problem. I'll be happy to discuss with them. So
Sure.
my mail ID is already given here.
Huh.
You can even, this is my WhatsApp number, and probably you can pick me also. So if
Okay.
somebody is really interested to proceed or work with me in this particular regard, I think I'm open for that.
Yeah.
So
Actually, very exhaustive and very nice session, sir. Excellent session, I must say,
thank you.
because many faculty are from mathematics background, and the idea behind this faculty development program is to equip them with the concepts which are required for these new upcoming courses like artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Yes.
So
yes,
with
ma'am.
that idea only, this workshop has been organized, and I'm sure that they are really getting benefited in each of the
Sure, ma'am.
sessions.
Sure,
So it was a really excellent session, sir.
Thank you.
Title itself, I think the way you have spoken, that title is justified what you have
Okay.
given.
Thank you. Thank you.
Artificial intelligence equal to mathematics. That's right,
Thank
sir.
Thank
Thank you so much, sir, for
Thank you.
being with us. If there
Thank
are
you.
any queries, we will come back to you.
Definitely.
Let me
Thank you.
check the chat box once. Okay, I think most of them are thanking you for your wonderful
Thank you.
session,
Thank you.
informative session. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay, ma'am.
fine,
So,
sir. So I
thank you.
think we can.
We can break now.
Yeah. We
Okay,
can
bye.
wind up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. The presentation was quite interesting. Now I request the participants to fill the feedback form. The link has been shared in the chat box and even in the WhatsApp group. So we will join for the afternoon session at 2 or before 2 o'clock. I request all the participants to join the link before 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Yeah, by 1:50, everybody should log in, I think. Yeah, right. Thank you.